Hello and welcome to BCS Leaders Voice. On this program, we bring you insights from industry professionals and academics on topics of education, training and skills. Joining me today is the Chairperson of SLASSCOM and the Group Chief Customer Officer for Dialog Axiata PLC, and we're very proud to have with us our fellow member, Ms. Sandra De Zoysa, joining us on BCS Leaders Voice. Aiboan, and welcome to our show, the BCS Leaders Voice. You're the very first personality that we're interviewing for 2022. And on the start of our show, we want to wish you all the very best for a fantastic year.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you for having me. And I didn't realize that I was the first one going on air for this interview series. So I feel privileged. And thank you so much for your good wishes. And let's just hope that all of us have an amazing year, different and better than the ones we've had in the past 2 years.
Truly honored and privileged to have you on our show. Sandra, we'd like to start things about your journey in the telecom and the IT BPM sector. That would have been quite challenging.
Challenging is an understatement really. When I think about when I started off at first, some 33 years ago, when I was the first, I would say the first female, as well as a really young one at the, in my very early 20s, when I joined the first mobile phone company in Sri Lanka. It was extremely challenging. So much so that actually the role I joined for, I had to move out of it because I had a boss that came in much later on, Sri Lankan. I was interviewed previously by those that came from that company in Sweden, and this gentleman felt that I was too young, and being a girl, that people won't take me seriously because at the time a mobile phone and the technology was looked at as being very technical in nature, and he thought I wouldn't be suitable. So I was actually moved to kind of set up and look after what was then the early forms of customer service or customer experience management, which wasn't even prevalent in the country at the time. I remember I cried first a whole lot because I didn't want to be moved, and then I took to it and did my very best, and which actually has been my career for the last 3 decades, and I absolutely love it. So it's it's been a good journey. From that point onwards, so the first mobile phone company, then the second one to set up, which is now, it's changed over. So actually my the first company I worked for and the second one I worked for has merged, and that's the second. And then for the last 24 years I've been at Dialog. I found, which was my home. So being in this industry, and of course then moving on into supporting SLASSCOM when SLASSCOM was set up. Dialog is a founder member with SLASSCOM, so that was about 13 years ago, and I was nominated from Dialog, and since then I quite enjoyed the work I was doing, completely on a voluntary basis of course, and I've been a happy volunteer at SLASSCOM for the last 13 years.
Sandra, you've grown as a graduate, as an individual, as a personality in one of the most dominated industries today. And what are the 5 things that you think the youth of today, when we speak of 5, I know that there's more, but the 5 primary things that a youth needs today to be out there or to be employed?
So I would say that fundamental would be the fact that you need to choose your space and to be able to be a professional. So which means the education that you focus on taking and the path that you choose for yourself. It's not to say that you can't subsequently keep building on it and probably move into something else, but the first thing is the fundamentals, and you've got to get that right. Beyond that, I would say what's very, very important is the fact that you are willing to focus and do good work, willing to focus on a career, willing to get your hands dirty, and not be afraid of hard work. There's nothing called getting to success, in a bang, right? You don't climb the career ladder of success within the year or two or whatever, right? And that I think is one of those things I find in youth these days. They're impatient. You've got to do the hard work, and it just takes time, and you should be willing to. So that's the second thing I would say. Third, and even more important than everything else, is the fact that you need to have other skills, social skills, relational skills. You need to be able to be empathetic. Communication skills are really important. And for me, what's more important really on a side of that is your sincerity with which you want to do things, whether it's for your employer, whether it's for your client, whether it's for your colleagues, right, your organization. So, you know, the sincerity with which you do all this. On a more personal note for me, it is also about, so I would say the fourth and the fifth would be about continuous development. Right? I remember my grandma used to say, like, you know, you learn something every day until you die or until you go to the grave, and she was right about it, right? So your continuous development is extremely critical and important. And I think in the past, young ones depended on their parents, their bosses, and everyone else to push you to study, to do things, you know, to get better. But I think now times have changed. You got to own it. You've got to take it on and be able to do it for yourself, not just wait for someone else to push you to study, to learn, to qualify yourself and stuff like that, right? So the fifth one that I talked about for me personally is, it is very important to find your purpose in life, right? So your journey will be an interesting, enjoyable one as long as you found your purpose and you can align. That way you wouldn't you wouldn't go to work thinking, oh my gosh, it's a Monday, how horrible, I'm waiting for 4:30, I need to go home, or wake up and every morning I sit and it's work, right? For me, it's never been that. I mean, back in the day, not so long ago, if ever there was a holiday and a weekend, I used to say, it's a holiday, I can't go to work. It's like, I want to go to work, I want to work, right? Because I like the work, I enjoy it. So finding that purpose, the meaning, I think is really super important. If you want to be able to enjoy, and when you enjoy something, you can do good, and you will do well, and you will succeed. So I would say those are the few things.
Sandra, the modern day encourages the youth to have IT, information technology, as a required skill. What's your take on it?
I think from, you know, using a phone for your everyday communication, I think a mobile phone is almost an extension to us, right? And that is why it's almost become an accessory. You can have the phone on your wrist and then, you know, be able to read messages, do everything else. So obviously communication is a, you know, if technology is what you use as a medium for communication, then it is very, very important that everybody is comfortable with using technology. And within technology, not that everyone needs to be a software engineer, right? It's to be able to use the technology to do your work and to benefit. While there are lots of others who take to it as a you know, technical skill and a practitioner, and they will be the ones who develop the technology, right? So we don't all have to be developers of the technology. We don't all have to be innovators, you know, and looking to do that. But for the most part, if you can be really good at using all the technology that's available to sharpen your skills and to be able to do what you do better, it just enhances and allows you to do better, right? In no matter what area of work, what discipline, what kind of products or services you're selling or your organization is selling. So for me, it's about the importance of continuing to look at, understand, and even try your hand at all of the technologies that are around you by way of whether it is devices or you know, platforms and all of that, just to enhance your everyday life and make life better for you.
Sandra, on opportunities for women and the future landscape, people always want to know what's new. They want to hear about something that's new as well. What are the trending jobs that's out there in the market that people should lay their hands on in the future?
Given COVID, I think everyone's realized what's more important in life, right? In previous times, it was like work was the only thing, maybe. But now people realize that human connection, relationships, families, putting yourself first, putting your family first is important, right? So that being the case, I think this whole thing about empathy, about kindness, about caring, about compassion takes the forefront. And particularly when you are going more digital and using more social platforms, and you're actually not able to make that human connect with others. Predominantly lots of people are working from home and have been working from home for the most part of the last 2 years. That trend will continue to be as well. We will never go back to the pre-COVID times of perhaps going to work 5 days a week or whatever that was, right? So we've sort of adapted, and we've been able to adopt some technology use and be able to do things. So that being the case, I would think, I call it humanizing technology, that area of humanizing technology. So if there's going to be more use of technology, people are still looking for the human connect, right? So then technology needs to behave or mimic a little bit of that emotional human connect. So any job, I would say, in that area will be, those that will have a lot of value in the future. There are also things like customer journey management, customer journey orchestration, where you're looking at journey design. So what is a customer's journey when they traverse through the various platforms or the various different channels, which are either can be social channel or can be a digital channel or can be a physical, human interaction kind of channel. But, how do you sort of blend these, and how do you make it comfortable enough to give it a human kind of feel? So obviously that is why there's the Siri, the Alexa and so on, right? Because more and more the work that companies do, like Google for instance, what they do is to try and bring about as much as possible that companionship or you've got an assistant kind of feel within technology. And then it just makes life so much easier, because you can get your, in your day-to-day living, if you adopt a digital lifestyle, you can get your car switched on before you get in. You can, put your air conditioners on and cool your home before you get in. You can use, technologies within the home, in every part of the home, right? Whether it's that you want music, or whether you want your children to do their homework, or whether they want to play, or or you want a recipe, or no matter what, right? So in every part of your life, you can have technology, and you can embrace those technologies, and everybody will be more than happy to embrace technology as long as it's more, it gives you the feel of that human connect.
Sandra, following the pandemic, we see a lot of entrepreneurs who are very keen on their own startups. Some of them losing their jobs, and we see a turnaround in different industries. And these startups have really come about introducing and moving into other markets. How do you see them growing from a country like Sri Lanka into the Asian region?
So I think particularly the fact that Sri Lankans, the mom and pop businesses, the females who are entrepreneurs, the number of people that are running businesses from home and have actually made perhaps their hobbies into now a business, right? Have the opportunity to thrive. Being able to digitally interact or take your business digital, being able to sell whatever it is that you have, whether it's locally or globally, gives you, it's like a great equalizer. It gives you equal opportunity, right? You're not so much looking now to open a shop, to put up funding for it. It can be so much easier when you go using a digital platform. So I think the opportunities for Sri Lankans alike are really tremendous, and given the fact that Sri Lanka is sort of a hub to the rest of Asia, I feel the opportunities for Sri Lanka is really great. Only thing is we need to leverage on those opportunities, which is why from SLASSCOM we are really encouraging and trying to bring all of our companies together to build this gateway to Asia, or the technology hub. Fundamentally, I think Sri Lanka has definitely the skills. We have the right attitude. The country is beautiful, the weather is gorgeous, and for any of those companies that look to kind of enter into Asia or this region, ideal place to start would be Sri Lanka. And we've got everything that to make it conducive for business and to start it off. So I think that's our USP, and that's the one that we really want to leverage on.
Women are often challenged by tech careers. How should we encourage them to join the industry?
So see, I mean, in the old days, the whole difference between men and women had to do with that physical strength kind of aspect, right? And yes, when you're doing field jobs and farming and so on, yes, that does play a role. But think about modern day, IT, for instance. There is no difference. Men, women both equally can take to it and be good at it. Women can, in fact, some of them can be better at it than the men do. And therefore, I think the biggest problem I've always discussed with other women as well, and men, we find is that women tend to be a little scared, right? They're scared. And it's also because of the fact that they're very conscientious about everything they want to do. So usually it's not typical for women to take on jobs that seem techie, and that just seems like it's meant only for the men. But that's a thing of the past. So the more and more we encourage, the more and more we showcase females who've succeeded in this space, like many other spaces, right, which weren't typically meant for women. I think the whole stereotyping that happens needs to come to a stop. So I think when we continue to encourage women, when we continue to see more women joining the trade, when we find our male allies supporting the women and encouraging the women to embrace tech careers, IT careers, and be part of it, because it's wonderful that women can not only bring their technical skills, like I said before, they can also bring those other skills which are more prevalent in women than the men, which are the empathy and caring and all that. So they can take, and they're also very friendly and can communicate well. So I think the relational skills are super important as well. And when you bring all this to the mix, you're actually more valuable, right? And you can actually add a lot more value than because you come with a lot more, and I think that's the reason why women should not be afraid. And that's the reason why even in the early days, parents and teachers, should encourage young girls to take on to IT and tech and get interested and get comfortable and then get passionate about it.
What are the avenues for women to retain and be a part of this industry?
Well, I would say the nicest thing that has happened is enabling working from home, right? Having enabled working from home, those young moms who had kids and had to leave their jobs purely because of the fact that they couldn't manage both can now come back to work. In fact, majority of the organizations world over, as well as ourselves, even at Dialog, we are really, and even through SLASSCOM, we're looking at bringing all the women back to work. The other is the fact that there's flexible working opportunities. So now it's not about the 8:30 to 5 and clocking in and clocking out. It's more about finishing your work for the day or your assignment that has been given to you, and it doesn't matter whether it's 8:30 or 5:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning. Doesn't really matter, as long as you do the work. So it's no longer rigid, and that helps. And apart from that, the fact that women can also build themselves in terms of continuous learning, because online courses, whether it's even your degrees, your MBAs, right? Everything has gone online now in terms of education, and just completely opens up, I think, a vista of opportunities for women to be able to continuously develop themselves and keep getting better and better at what they do, and bringing their best selves to work, given the flexibility. And this is going to continue. So I think more of it means more opportunities, and to me personally, I just feel like it's a women's world out there for the future.
Brilliant. Sandra, a lot of people are very much involved in memberships, societies, associations, and that brings everyone coming together for a lot of knowledge learning, for a lot of networking. And with all of that, we have the continuous professional development programs that's ongoing as well. But currently, we see a huge spike towards online training certifications, especially subjects like business analysis, artificial intelligence, software testing, all coming into the industry. How do you see this working around?
So that's the best thing ever, right? Because if there was anything at all, the limitation was limitation to education and limitation to developing yourself and getting better, was the fact that you have to pay more for it. You have to find time for it. You can't manage your job, your work and your home, because maybe you have to travel to some place, sit in a lecture room for the whole day, literally you lose your whole day, right? And then when you come back, it is so hard, right? Now you don't have all those problems, it's all gone away, right? You can sit in on your bed, in your PJs and listen to your lecture, and that's made it fantastic for everyone, right? And now the age boundaries aren't really an issue either, because if you felt like, oh, I'm too young to sit in that lecture because everyone else is like my daughter's age or my son's age, you don't really have that problem anymore. You just go online and you don't have to have those inhibitions anymore, right? And so it's great opportunity for everyone to be able to probably like save some money, save some time, and still be able to dabble with all of the roles that you have or your responsibilities, and still be able to learn and develop yourselves. Now, apart from that, during the pandemic times, almost everything was offered free of charge, right? There's so much of content that's available to you and you don't have to pay for it, which is a great opportunity, right? And so for you to try and figure out a little bit of everything and to become somebody who has a knowledge in everything, not essentially a practitioner, and then you figure out what are the areas that you may like better, right? Do you want to do BA or do you want to do UX and UI and so on? And these are all really trending new careers, right? So if you figure out that, hey, this is something that I seem to love, then you can choose to get certified, get a degree, still online, right? And still do it at half the cost or less, and still do it in your own time and in your own pace. And pace was the problem before, right? Each one learns at a different pace. Each one learns in a different way. Now with these kind of programs, you can do this at your own pace. It's affordable, and you can also do it, possibly choose one that you like, that works for you, because not everybody is about sitting at a lecture hall and listening. Maybe you don't get to absorb as much that way, right? Now with all the tools that are available, when you're doing online, it's a lot more interesting. There's a lot more visual stuff as well, and then you get to sort of use gamification, so you can see what you learned by taking those little gamified, little knowledge sessions, and you don't, if you feel like in a classroom where everyone's seated that you may be slow or you're not as good, you don't have all that because now you're just doing it one-on-one, right? So it's kind of super, and one of the things that I like about it all is the fact that it feels one-on-one. It feels like the tutor is yours. It's you and the tutor, right? Or whatever you're learning. So it feels so much nicer as opposed to sometimes you sit in a, how the tuition classes are. There are hundreds of people sitting, you don't hear, you don't see, you don't know what's going on. And there's also a lot of distraction along the way because everyone else is looking, you're looking. Yeah. Lots of other things going on, right? Yeah. But here you don't have all that. You can just close your door, sit in your PJs, sit on your bed, focus. And so it's so much better, isn't it? So for us, I think it's the best thing ever.
Sandra, as my final question, the global demand for IT and its way forward, how should we embrace it? Sometimes we find it very difficult to keep in touch, to be ongoing, to keep on learning. I mean, if you take social media, it's very hard to keep up with all the social media platforms. But it's important to move with that trend. How do you see this?
So I think you can't embrace absolutely everything. You really got to pick and choose what works for you. Now, social media particularly can be a huge distraction and something that destroys your time and your focus. So personally, for me, I would say you've got to pick and choose which mediums or which channels are beneficial to you and you need to be in, right? Where it's actually adding value to your life, you're learning something, you want to be aware. Of course, if you need to connect with your colleagues, your friends, what are those platforms that you need to use for your work, and so on. And then along the way, there's so many others which are pure distraction, right? Some, of course, are a form of entertainment, and that kind of thing is good when you want a moment to get off work and go and look at some funny thing and have a laugh and then get back to your work. But if you go and get stuck there and you just get permanently stuck there, then you're in trouble because you've lost focus and you've lost a lot of time. And it's also very addictive, It can be quite addictive. It can be like alcohol or smokes or anything else. So you really have to be cautious in picking. And at first you may want to experience it, so you may just want to try everything, including TikTok and Instagram and everything else. And thereafter you may want to cut down and say, this is not for me, this is a distractor. This one's annoying, this is not maybe for my age, the content is not appropriate, it's not adding value in my life, and then you kind of narrow down to the few that can be good for you and is value adding and enhancing rather than taking away from you, right? And I think there's never going to be a world that can separate technology and us human beings. So technology is here to stay. Technology is part and part of our lives, and the more we don't fight it, the more we don't think of it negatively, I think the better it is, and to be able to figure out how to use it in for good, right? At SLASSCOM, we say technology for good is what we look at from our sustainability kind of initiative. And that's what we're focused on. I think everybody should focus on looking at technology for good rather than for the bad stuff and for the negative. And that way I think we will all have better lives, we will all live healthier, happier lives.
Thank you very much, Sandra De Zoysa, for being with us on our program for BCS Leaders Voice. And with that message, until we see you on another episode, we'll see you soon.